2023 comes to an end.
Happy holidays.
Well, hello and welcome to Triangle Square PlayStation Podcast. I'm your host, Brett Beck, and alongside me for the last episode of the year of our Lord 2023 is one Mr. Chris Figs. Chris, how you doing, buddy?
Oh, just dandy. How are you, Brett?
Doing dandy. I'm doing fine and dandy as well. Been a busy week, as holiday weeks tend to be, but busy in a good way, you know, seeing people that you love, care about, rushing around to do so. So we hope all of you had a good holiday season, whatever it is that you celebrate, however it is that you celebrate. And we are back today for the last episode of 2023. And you know, considering the time of year it is, we're actually recording instead of, relying on banked episodes. So instead of digging into the news, which there's not a whole lot of anyway, we're going to talk about one thing realistically. We figured that this would be an episode kind of to reflect on the year in gaming to some degree, answer questions from the listeners who decided to go over to social media and, answer the call to action, as well as have some fun with the Velvet's Corner to wrap out the year with a probably shorter than usual episode. We are really aiming for that anyway. Helps with Chris's crazy schedule. Seems like work's been rough for him. Work's been crazy for me. We got 3 people out of our 12 employees that are on vacation. So.
Oh, good.
You know how that works. Yeah. It creates an impact. So we're going to have some fun today. We're going to kind of wind down the year and wind down the day, as it were. So if this is your first time listening to the podcast, first and foremost, we hope that you enjoy it. Welcome. Chris, we're going to start the show off in a rather time-honored tradition here and checking out what each other have been playing so that we can either give the listeners, be them new or old, new or existing, I should say, some insight onto whether they should or should not play it or whether they would or would not be interested. So my list is not too crazy. Looks like you're still kind of on your bouncing around games thing. So go ahead.
I've gotten to that point again.
So what you been playing?
I've been doing a couple games. GTA 4 is still... I've slowed down on GTA 4. I still do have aspirations of the platinum, but I got stuck doing one pigeon for like an hour. And I was like, I don't want to do this, man. Like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. But I still like it. Like GTA 5 or 4. I keep saying 5. Every time I talk about this game, I say 5. But yeah, GTA 4 is great. It's a lot of fun. I think I'm either closing in at the end or I'm going to get the platinum. I don't know which one it is yet. It's kind of anytime Brett and John are like, oh, yeah, let's play. I'm like, yeah, we'll go for it. I'm down. But
oh, you guys push me. I literally fell asleep the other day for so long that by the time I was up, I was like, I just want to go to bed again. So I moved from the couch in my in the game room to the bed. I thought that was pretty funny though, because I was like, I'm going to power nap, and then it was like 3 hours later, and I was like, oops,
that was too long. That's not a power nap. That's a nap.
That's not even a nap. That's sleep.
At that late at night, no thanks. Yeah, I don't know. I don't plan on ever hitting you guys up because you're doing me a favor for it, Oh. So, but we'll see. Maybe soon we'll do it.
I don't feel so bad about it. Definitely, once it's 2024 and the trophy competition is anew, and I'm not pushing a clock where I'm trying to maybe potentially edge my way into a victory over old bacon bits here, then we'll feel maybe a little different. So, then you can just throw me at whenever. Now I'm trying to both enjoy a game that I'm playing while also hoping I can get the platinum in time for it to count.
Yeah, is it Avatar?
Yeah.
Nice.
And I am enjoying it. It's a juicy game. But before we get over to me, I noticed that in the Discord, right? And if you want to join the Discord, head over into the description, click the link down there, whether you're watching on YouTube, listening on podcast services. I noticed that you were kind of talking in the Discord about the very real possibility that if you move out, that you're going to be spending a lot of time playing PS3 anyway. Yeah. But it kind of seemed like you were leaning toward that regardless of what happens with your living situation. And I noticed that your list is all PS3 besides a multiplayer game, which checks out because you're not going to have a lot of active multiplayer PS3 games. So you'd be surprised.
You would. I've played some World at War recently within this year.
When we went into the lobby in Grand Theft Auto 4 that first day that I hopped in, there was like 15 people in that map running around.
Yeah.
That's enough to have an active map as far as I was concerned.
No, exactly. So especially when I move out, that's one of those things where, as listeners might know, like I still live at home with my parents, and I've not had much cause to move out, and then I just kind of decided I was going to. But one of the things that I realized I would have to sacrifice is like I can't be the treasure trove of buying any video game I want. So I have this big PS3 collection that I honestly, like, real talk confession, I like having it, but it's like 99% aesthetics. Like, it looks sick, but I don't play a lot of PS3 games.
Well, look, is that really... There's two sides of that. It's not wrong to be in 2023 and not be playing a lot of PS3, just like it's not wrong to be in 2023 and be playing a lot of PS3. It's like both are valid, but more people are going to fall on the side of being in this year and not playing the PS3 a whole lot. So, realistically, you're in the status quo.
Yeah,
you're in the status quo normally, and the few times that you are playing them, you're special, Chris.
Right, exactly. I'm somewhat of a completionist. Just keep the games for 10 years.
Very slow completionist, but I get there.
Yeah, exactly. So there's just been a focus on stuff that I missed where I don't know if you might have gotten it more than anyone else, but it's like I haven't enjoyed a whole lot of new stuff. Like, it's been I think the only game I beat this year on PS5 was Resident Evil 4. Yeah, other than like platinum stuff, and a lot of the stuff I got the platinum and so like The Witcher, old game. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, and then it was small indie games that I played, but nothing huge really stood out to me. I didn't finish Hogwarts, didn't finish Armored Core. Persona 5 Tactica I've been playing a bit on Game Pass, but nothing crazy. So I've just been kind of dipping back into the older stuff where I think that's just where I'm more nostalgic maybe, or I don't know what the right thing is, but it just appeals to me more right now.
Well, it's like the conversation we had about me kind of disconnecting from modern games for a bit and kind of going off and playing almost exclusively games that were anywhere from 5 to 10 years old, if not sometimes even older, depending on what I was playing on. Or just even revisiting, like doing Twisted Metal 1 and 2 after they patched the ability to platinum them super easily, which was fun. And I enjoyed doing it. It was like nice to spend, 15, 20 hours in Twisted Metal, both of those games, and getting the trophies and just being like, oh yeah, look, like there's a very clear picture of what modern gaming is. And occasionally new games come out and share a little bit of that. Like, you can kind of view them as a portal to the past. But more often than not, it seems like most new games, at least in the AAA sphere, are just doing something different, which is fine. I mean, in any given time period, you should be able to identify the media to some degree, because you notice that like media is referential to other media, and it tends to be media from a previous gen. So you can only point to one game of any generation of the past and be like, that game was very responsible for how this generation's games are looking. And that's pretty common. You see it often. I think The Last of Us definitely set forward Sony's behind the shoulder third person action games, action adventure games where you're very story driven and very character driven, because it worked for them. And a lot of the industry followed as a suit because that's what people wanted. And you look at Skyrim. Skyrim was the reason that open world games became so prolific and so abundant in PS4. So,
well, interesting conversation potentially here that I've been thinking about while you talked is I feel like the PS3 is right at the bottom edge of refining video games, right?
I think I know I see where you're coming from, right?
Yeah, and I think the point we're at, right, is the PS4 and that generation refined it even more. And now it's so refined that it's almost a little sanitary. It's like you get a PS3 open world game like Mafia 2, and you're picking up Playboy magazines with fully detailed pictures, but there's nothing else in the entire game. Like, I don't know if you played Mafia 2. It's like the porno mags and an empty city. That's the whole game. And
no, I haven't, but I'm.
It's like Enslaved Odyssey to the West, right? Sure. Like, I don't think that's a game you would see right now, because that game would have different crafting systems and collector stuff. And that game does have that to a degree, but it's not overwhelming.
Well, it's referential to a time, right? Like that was before games became where almost every game has to have RPG-like features, which is another thing that happened, right? Throughout PS4, every game that could needed to have some kind of gear system that, may or may not really matter that much, but they want you to interact with it anyway. Or even if you do have to interact with it and the game forces it on you, you don't have to do anything thoughtful. You just have to upgrade to the next best piece of gear to keep going. I would argue that God of War 2018 was that. And it wasn't like the gear in God of War 2018 was to actually work on building different builds, which is what the idea of armor sets and gear in a traditional RPG is. All right, well, what are you going to have equipped? And that's going to play a big part in how you play games. But I don't even want to say anything bad about it, and I'm not trying to imply that you're saying anything bad about it, but most of the ambition that was prevalent in PS3 is commonplace now. Like on PS3, it was very hard to do densely packed, large open worlds. So when people tried to do it and swung for the fences, sometimes they'd fail a little bit, but there was always that little bit of like, wow, the fact that they even tried and got close or succeeded is kind of amazing. But, these days, I think we take that for granted to some degree. You always talk about time and place of games. They've been talking about making an Avatar game for a decade at least, since the original movie came out, and it finally comes out, and the game is underperforming considerably, which is unfortunate because it's a good game. I'm enjoying my time with it. But the time and place of it all, if you came out with a game that was remotely like Far Cry is, or like this game is, which is very similar to Far Cry in a lot of ways. So I think that there's a very real possibility that you could have made this game and it been like a Far Cry 3 or 4. And this game would have been like, holy shit, guys, in 2013, in 2012, in 2014 even, Well, and it's just, we're not there now because Breath of the Wild had a massive open world. Red Dead 2, massive open world. So you get to a point where all the ambition that used to make certain games stand out is being replicated, which is great because you're spoiled for genre. You're spoiled for options within every subset of games, right? You're spoiled for options in RPG. You're spoiled for options in open world games. You're spoiled for options in indie games. You're spoiled for options in third person action adventure, which is awesome and great. But I feel like because of that, things don't stand out as much. And that's really, we've had microcosms of this conversation almost all year round.
Yeah.
But it's just harder to get eyes on games that are doing something interesting because arguably all games are doing something interesting. We've just seen it all to some degree.
I think the point I was trying to make when I was talking about Mafia, which ended up with me kind of just sounding like a boomer, was that because everything is so mass market and trying to sell to the highest amount of people, there's no like weird experimentation or just weird shit going on. Right. And that's what I kind of missed. That was kind of where I was going with Mafia, right? Is that they put all this effort into one thing that they really wanted to do because it fit the time. But then they built an open world that is completely empty other than the Playboys. And that I think is something now where you would have the Playboys, but then you would also have the spent bullet casings from the Jimmy Hoffa murder, and then you would have collecting cars, and then there would be a submission for one of the Mafia things, and then you'd be building up your Mafia and choosing different Mafia bosses and doing too much stuff. And I think one of the interesting thing about older games that I notice is that they're very focused, right? Yeah. Like I've been playing LA Noire. That's one of the games on my list. And LA Noire is you go to this place, we play this obnoxiously loud music tone because you're right near a clue. You examine the clue, you go talk to somebody, and you try and guess if they're lying or telling the truth. And that's the whole game, right? Mm-hmm. And a game like that in 2023 is you go there, there's a hidden feather in the woman's bedroom where her dead husband used to write his books, right? And you have to go pick up that feather. There's just so much stuff, and it's so tightly it's built to expand the hours, and I feel that less in some of the games I'm playing, right? I hope that makes sense. I feel like that makes sense.
I get exactly what you mean, and it's I struggle with how to look, because it's like no matter what you do, it's a little difficult to try and talk about this without sounding like you're stuck in the past, or that you're trying to overly criticize new games, because I played a lot of great games this year, even new ones. But games are so expensive that it doesn't even matter. It doesn't really matter. But games are so expensive to make that, yes, there are people that are making games on much smaller budgets, but you can tell that immediately. And I think one of the things that comes from that is because of how hard it is to make games in comparison to certain other art forms. A good comparison is, of course, film. One of my favorite things about film is that a shoestring budget movie can end up making tons of money and being revered. And depending on how well it's made, you may not even realize it was made on a shoestring budget, because nothing about it made you go, well, this is okay. Yeah. Like, this is definitely not the Avengers. And clearly that is true, right? Like, if a movie's not as CGI heavy, but like a good example is Godzilla -1 is being heavily revered as one of the greatest movies of the year. And that movie was made for like less than $15 million, if you were to listen to what the director was talking about. And I've heard that, yes, there's a little bit of questionable CGI here and there, but also one of the most expensive movies that came out this year or the end of last year was The Flash, a movie that I enjoyed, but it had questionable CGI in plenty of places. And that movie was made on a much higher budget. So whatever, Chris, you get my point. I haven't seen Godzilla, so I don't want to overstate or understate its thing. I want to see Godzilla, by the way. But my point being is that when you watch a movie like Godzilla, right, I don't think that there's as obvious as of an immediate, like, oh, well, this is a low budget film. Instead, it's like, oh, this is a different type of film. You don't even think about budget. It doesn't come into mind. Whereas I think in gaming, maybe it's just because of, and maybe I'm projecting some of what I know to be the case. You play certain games and you're like, I think this art style was specifically chosen for this reason, which is not a bad thing at all. Some of my favorite games I played this year had weird art styles. The Artful Escape was a really awesome game with a cool art style that I'm glad was probably because they couldn't afford to try and make something look photorealistic, which is a good thing. I played Yoku's Island Express, and that game is adorable, beautiful art. And it's, but it's driven by the fact that it's budgeted. And because you can see that stark contrast, and now, sorry, I just want to finish that point, but since you can see that stark contrast, unfortunately, gaming doesn't have that same ability to kind of lull the player into a sense of like, don't think about what the game size or budget or anything is, because you're going to tell, because very seldom do you see a movie that's $10 and then another movie that's $59. That's just not common. Movie prices are a lot more homogenous. Game prices do act as an indicator to give you some kind of information about probably how much the game costs for them to make, how many hours you should expect to get out of it within reason, and stuff like that. And so it's unfortunate that gaming has that, because it used to, I feel like THQ and game companies like that were a great middle ground, where you'd see AAA in its design, while also, if you really look, being able to clearly tell it was made for a lot less money. And that still is happening to a degree, but even a game like Plague Tale Requiem was very expensive to make.
Yeah. Well, there's a game company that's been in the news recently whose big budget sequel that came out this year cost about 200 million more than its previous game. And I think one of the interesting things that came out of the news around that was that people internally were like, can you even tell the difference? And I think the answer is no. We both played this game, and I feel like the answer is no. Like, you can't really tell where that extra 200 or 100 million went. And it's such an expensive product now that it has to be, there's no risk in that game. There's cool shit in it, but there's no true risk, right? There's no morality system in your superhero game. You know, there's no, hey, you're playing as a monkey kind of man and you're in the apocalypse with this girl. There's none of that. There's no, hey, you're playing the bad guy, but you think he's the good guy, right? There's none of those risks, really.
So, all that to say, I don't want to be pessimistic and say it doesn't exist, because one of the most interesting things about Senua's Saga is that I do think Senua's Sacrifice, while it was made as an independent game, actually exists as one of the rare examples of what I was talking about, where that game had very high production values made on almost no money to the point where the main actress was just a developer at the studio who they mocapped. And even the way they mocapped was very different than standard mocapping. They found a way to do like incredibly low budget mocapping that was very, very effective. And so I think it's interesting that Microsoft bought that, and I'm excited for that game because, of course, I like the first. But the second is because it does have such a higher option for budget now. And, of course, we won't get to see that, which is a conversation we've been having. It's weird how secretive budget to sales and stuff are in the gaming industry as opposed to any other industry. Like, we hear about budget to return on investment pretty often in other industries. But gaming is very secretive. But point being is we're unlikely to ever see the budget, but I think it's undoubtedly much higher than it would have been had Microsoft not come in and bought. Why can't I think of Ninja Theory? Which Enslaved is Ninja Theory, so we're just having a roundabout conversation. But point being, I'm curious for that game because I want to see how much of its quirky nature it maintains as a high budget sequel, because that will be very informative as to what kind of risks truly do exist. And I'm still unsure how risk averse Microsoft is because of their very different and clearly, as we've kind of gotten to see, not entirely working as often as they want strategy of having a market that's driven by a subscription. So, that's, I'm curious how much they pushed and been like, hey, if we're going to give you this much extra money for this game, it needs to be a showcase game. And if it's going to be a showcase game, we're going to dictate a little bit more of what you're doing. And I hope that that's not it, because the real way to get a showcase game, as unfortunate as that is, or as weird as it is, maybe even unintuitive, is to just leave people alone and let them make cool stuff. And you just have to have an eye on what you should push and how you should push it. But the fact that Demon's Souls came out at a fizzle, and then a Souls-like is now an entire genre, goes to show you that you never know what's going to take off. You just don't.
It's... Could you imagine the trajectory of the industry if Sony hadn't fumbled that bag?
100%. And it's also weird to think of what might have happened with FromSoft. You like to look at them and think, well, they probably wouldn't have done anything different. But it's just it's interesting to see, because Sony very easily could have been like, yeah, we're going to take the risk, and then they would have been rewarded. Can you imagine Sony getting to put out Elden Ring? But then you have to ask yourself, would Sony allow FromSoft to put out Elden Ring the way that Elden Ring was?
Well, that's what I'm curious about. Because here's the thing, right? They probably, if they had the read that they should have had on Demon's Souls, they would have bought From Software then.
Probably, but Bloodborne, this is just the way the things go. Bloodborne didn't do that well. Sold like 2 million units, which is probably enough for it. But in comparison to the 35 million that Elden Ring sold, that's quaint.
Yeah, but maybe I'm not a FromSoft lover.
Dark Souls
like
3 sold
else.
like over 10 million. It took a lot longer.
But that's the question I'm about to ask you, right? Didn't Bloodborne, again, please don't yell at me, but didn't Bloodborne kind of start this?
Start what? Out of curiosity.
Like the fervor around it?
I think,
because people love Bloodborne. Well, Dark Souls started it, but then Bloodborne comes out. It's a PS4 exclusive, which instantly puts it into the conversation whether you played it or not.
And it came out after Dark Souls 2, which was much more. It was much more criticized than the first. Yeah.
Right, and then that's when, oh shit, these guys made Bloodborne. Dark Souls is really cool. Demon Souls, if you go back and if you know, is
actually great. Yeah.
Right. And then now, bam, Dark Souls 3 comes out. It reviews highly, and it's the guys behind Bloodborne, the game everyone's been talking up for years, even though nobody played. That kind of thing. Okay, here it is. And then they love that. And then here's Elden Ring, right? It's that same trajectory.
Yeah. No, I think you're right.
It's like building a podcast. It's the same shit.
Weirdly enough. But look, I don't want to spend too much longer on this. I mean, I get where we're going, but the reality is that we're going to have to wait and see. But I'd say the PS5 generation there's been a lot of great games, and I have no problem with the games that are out. But I think that this has been one of the least experimental generations so far. And that's probably, so to your point, Chris, it seems like that's the trajectory, even though I hope it's not. I'm hoping that COVID slowed down certain games that would have been cool. Maybe Ken Levine strikes again. Judas comes out and is everything that the industry needed to blow up. And because, BioShock was a big, watershed moment for the industry as well. So if he can actually, trap lightning in a bottle 3 times, because I'd argue Infinite was also a very big game for them, then maybe, just maybe, we'll get somewhere with it. Because that's from everything we know, that's a massive, it's been being worked on forever. It's got a big budget behind it, or it's had a big budget because of how long it's taken to get worked on, but we'll see.
I don't know. I do think it's telling that my most anticipated games of next year are Persona 3 and Yakuza. So
old games.
Pretty much. I've also played Dragon Age Origins. Man, I like that game, but I don't know if I can play it. It runs so bad sometimes.
Yeah, it does.
And I was reading the trophy guide, and there's make sure you turn off autosave or the whole game will break. And I'm like, dude, what is this? So even just a regular playthrough is 40 to 50 hours. I did an hour for Fallout and wanted to kill myself. So
I think you're having some rose tinted glasses on how BioWare's games ran on 360 or Xbox, big homie.
Well, I hadn't played Origins. I only played Dragon Age 2, and Dragon Age 2 runs well. Dragon Age 2 is a good game.
Dragon Age 2 does run well. And
I've never played Origins before this.
It is Dark Souls 2 to Dark Souls 1. Everyone hates that game because it's nothing like Dark Souls, or it's nothing like Dragon Age Origins.
Yeah, which is what sucks, because I like Dragon Age Origins too. I like them both, but
they're vastly
I had just come off
games,
Fallout 3 when I played Dragon Age 2, so obviously I liked it. But yeah, that's a great game. I want to keep playing it.
Unfortunately, there's not a better way to play it besides PC, and I think it's on PC at the very least.
It's definitely on PC. Yeah.
So, but otherwise, that game has not gotten any kind of remaster or anything.
No. When they delay Dreadwolf, they'll
be like, "Hey, Origins remastered.
Origins, enjoy." And 2. But yeah, the last.
Do you think they'll ever do a collection with that 2 and Inquisition?
They should. They won't include Inquisition. It'll just be Dragon Age Inquisition, get out of the Hinterlands edition. But yeah, the last game was the only current gen game I've played this week, which was The Finals.
I've seen you on it a lot. Are you turning the corner on it? Where you're really liking it?
Yeah, it's fucking fun. It's really fun.
I'm glad you're enjoying it.
People out there, if you'd like to play, I like playing the medium class. It's great. I still think the announcers are weird. I'm sorry, I can't not hear the Slugfest guy, and it makes me slightly uncomfortable. But it goes to show that I think I was wrong. I don't think the games industry will actually care about AI, because people I've seen, like, I love Skill Up, and he's talked about against AI before, and then he gives this game like, yeah, this game's fucking fun. And I'm like, that's great, it is fun, but you would think you wouldn't be if you were against AI. You know what I mean? It's hard to.
Well, it's the hardest part of anything, which is if you truly care, you have to balance whether or not how much do you care. If you care enough to talk about it, does that mean you should care enough to have your actions reconcile with your words? And if you really care and you say that, then you should be able to say this game is fun, but I can't support it, and I don't think you should either. And that's a very hard thing to do. We're very quick and easy to be able to say, hey, this is in theory bad, and then when something that we enjoy that utilizes it comes out, we're like, but I mean, we could play this one.
Well,
that's the human condition, man.
Well, it's the trapped in the closet conundrum, right?
Please expound what you mean.
Well, Trapped in the Closet is a modern masterpiece of a musical opera.
It is so good.
But R. Kelly is a bad guy.
That's fair. Yeah.
So it's like, do I like Trapped in the Closet enough to be willing to know that? And for me, the answer is once a year. So
once a year, you just listen to all 35 parts of Trapped in the Closet?
Hell yeah.
Also, I can't remember the actual number, but it's way more than you think.
Oh, it's way more. Yeah, he profited off it. But the thing is, it's that same thing, right? People like the finals, so the AI voiceover doesn't really matter. People are going to talk about it, and then they're going to go back to playing the finals because it's fun. So,
oh, it's got 33. I was very close.
That was pretty good. Yeah.
Oh, dude, that's insane. That started in 2005, and the final chapters of the videos for it came out in 2012.
The cop was a midget.
What an odd piece of media that I reference often because it's so crazy.
It's fantastic. But that's the thing. You can't listen to it in public.
Says who?
You can't go into a New York subway with your speakers and play Trapped in the Closet. Someone's going to have a problem.
You shouldn't be going into a New York subway with a speaker anyway. They're called headphones. Dude, you're discussing the people who like walk into Walmart with their phone on speaker mode, having very intimate conversations out loud in Walmart. Or straight up just listening to whatever music they choose and see fit, walking around with their phone out. I'm like, do you think anyone else here wants you to be the person that selects the music for them?
I said that thinking about my job, and then I realized that there's no situation where I should probably ever play Trapped in the Closet at work.
Yeah, I mean, so that's just knowing
and it didn't work out. Okay.
That's okay, Chris. I can accept it.
What have you played?
I have been playing Frontiers of Pandora, and I've talked a bit about it, but I continue to think it's a really good game. It's got a lot of the problem that Ubisoft games have had, but I also think it's got a lot of interesting solves, or somehow their design works better in this world and for this game. I also think they went a little bold, and they took a lot of creative risk with some of the side quests, and it's unfortunate that I think that they did all this, and they are getting almost nowhere with it. I find it insane that in the same year, Avatar Way of the Water can come out and be the highest grossing film of all time. And then the Avatar game coming out in the same year gets absolutely zero attention from its publisher, gets no marketing. The only reason I know the game is out is because of a few people on Twitter.
Yeah.
And not even like high-end people. Like a few random people on Twitter, they were like, hey, this Avatar game's pretty fun. I'm like, oh shit, it came out. I heard about that game when they finally showed it off, and then Ubisoft has basically said nothing about it ever again. Here's the thing. I remember being a detractor strong, but I remember thinking like, is Avatar Way of the Water going to do well? Because I never hear anybody talk about Avatar. And then it was a massive success. But here's the thing. They marketed that thing to the fucking ground. I couldn't walk somewhere without seeing Avatar 2 in theater. Go see it today. And they have not given it that treatment for the game. So it really sucks. It's crazy to see an IP be so valuable in one medium and so absolutely unvaluable in a lateral medium. So it's unfortunate, but I'm enjoying the game. It's very long. I am surprised with how big the world map is and how varied it is. I'm in an entirely new section of the map now.
Really?
Yeah, it still has the problem of being too big realistically, but thankfully they have a lot of ways to try and work around it, and they give you a lot of mounts and stuff pretty early in the game. So that's good, because other games have very big maps and then don't even give you the ability to mount until over halfway through the game. I think Forbidden West had that problem. So it's interesting to see, but I am very much enjoying the game. I will like to talk more on it whenever I'm actually complete, but I think it's a cool story. I think they're doing something interesting. This might well be the last Avatar game ever, or at least for a long time, because ultimately they're going to look at the performance of this as something to, meter how well it can do in this industry. And
dude, I'm going to be honest. It's an Avatar game. I wouldn't be surprised if it charts.
Well, the game. Well, this is not unlike Ubisoft anyway, but the game's been out for like 2 weeks and it's already $40.
Well, yeah, but my argument would be that I've never met an Avatar fan.
Sure, same, right?
But those are huge.
I thought there was
movies.
no way that the second movie could do well, because I never hear anybody talk about it, and then it fucking made billions.
Avatar is the movie. Like, have you ever heard the theory that everyone else doesn't exist?
Yeah.
Right? Avatar is the movie that proves that everyone else is an NPC in my reality. Right? Because nobody likes Avatar, but then suddenly billions of people have seen the movie.
Yeah.
Like, I've never met someone who likes that shit.
I know one person in my actual, like, I've met them, I see them, talk to them face to face. I know one person who has told me they saw the second movie.
Yeah. I don't get it.
So I thought that was interesting. But moving on, I restarted Soul Sacrifice, and nice. I've made it through to the final Sorcerer's Ordeal with Sortiara. So I'm not playing Delta. I am playing the original. I have a soft spot for it, but I thought about playing Delta. I don't know if I'll stick with it much, but I've just been taking the Vita around as we travel for the holidays and just popping it on, playing it. And I really like that game, but it's like you said, it's focused. And it seems like if you're a focused game these days, you get the shit beat out of you if you cost any kind of real money. If you're a focused game that's $15, you're fine.
Yeah.
But if you're a focused AAA game that's $60 or $70, get the fuck out of here. That's basically what it comes down to.
What is your No, I won't tangent us again. Never mind.
That's okay, Chris. But yes, that's where we are right now. So look, Chris, let's go ahead. We're about, we really need to get moving, and we're going to try and keep with our time, but also, honestly, who knows with the next thing we're going to talk about. You pulled the tweets, so go ahead. I'm going to let you take over the section where you wanted to talk about this this Blundell fella.
Yeah, well, the reality is that I went on VGC, and the only news was from last week. So we did last week already. So sure. I did find a little stuff about the guy who had opened Deviation Games and then left Deviation Games, Jason Blundell. It appears that he is working at a mystery Sony project. We don't know what that is, because there's a bunch of people who he had worked for. There's this guy who was community manager for Deviation, who is now a junior game designer at PlayStation Studios. But the interesting part of his tweet is that at the end he goes, "And I work for Jason Blundell." So it appears that Jason Blundell has gone from Sony to more Sony, I guess, because it would appear that this is a first-party game rather than a second-party game that Sony's paying for. But the other tweet from Zuby Tech has just a bunch of other people joining PlayStation Studios after being, they're joining Sony Interactive Entertainment after being at Deviation. So, like, the first guy I just clicked on was Fred Thompson. He was a full-timer design director at Deviation, and now he's a principal game designer at Sony. He's been there for 7 months. Someone else, animation director, was at Deviation, was at Activision, was at Treyarch. Executive producer, Activision, Treyarch. And then this one's just different person.
So what the hell what do you think happened here? I mean, this sounds so weird because outside looking in, it sounds so ridiculous to hear that Deviation basically just fell apart. And Sony was, for all that we can tell, Sony's like, man, we're not going to worry about it anymore. But now one of the head people goes forward. I'm always surprised at how the hell stuff like that happens. Like, he was the one who founded the studio. Was its failure not at least in part on him? Like, or what was it? Or did he just leave, and when he left, everything fell apart? And that makes you wonder. But
and you also wonder because he co-founded the studio, just to clarify.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't the only founder. You were correct.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying, because maybe the other founder, the idea was more his and Jason didn't like it. Or maybe, and this is the one thing I don't understand, why you would do this rather than just buy Deviation. Maybe Sony just poached him.
But Deviation's new. You'd imagine you could get them pretty cheap at that point.
That's what I was saying. But hear me out though. You bought Deviation for what? $500,000 a year rather than $20 million. I don't know. I don't know what
it
that
depends
guy
on
makes,
how they
obviously.
do it. Yeah.
But right. I don't see the reason why you do that, especially as it seemed like they were set up to be a Sony studio. I don't know if you remember when they toured their office, it was like dual senses on the walls and crazy shit like that. So
yeah,
not working on an Xbox SKU anytime soon. But there's not a ton to talk about here. It was just the most interesting thing that I found while going through is that Sony clearly has an unannounced, you'd imagine, shooter project coming from Jason Blundell.
I think I've been thinking about this a bit, and I've been trying to figure out how to word it. But the best thing I've been able to come up with, right, in my head, right, as I'm thinking it through, is there's a lot of kind of chatter around, at least, of course, on Twitter and the internet sphere, but even amongst my friends group, about how gaming is kind of just in a weird spot right now. And I do think that that's true, because it's just, a lot of things are not going as anyone expects. Random things are popping up and doing really well. Other things are, of course, doing well that you'd expect, but budgets are going through the roof. So I think that there's safer bets, but I've seen some stuff where it was like Sony saying that they, and I don't know how much of this even came from the leak. So if it's something from the leak, I don't know that it's from the leak. So hopefully it's not coming out like that, but I saw somewhere where Sony was saying that if they don't change their primary market structure, that they don't think they'll be able to survive. And I find that so crazy to believe, because as a consumer looking in, I think I've said aspects of this, but I've found out how I kind of want to coin it. And I think it's, they always talk about like the housing bubble and like the economy bubble and all these things and how it's going to pop. And whenever it pops, you're going to see the repercussions of it popping. And I think what we've been seeing happen in the gaming industry is we've been seeing a live service bubble, and everyone tries to jump into it and tries and tries and tries. And we've heard I feel like very close to that, if not part of the same movement, was the idea of, in NFTs in gaming, and a lot of them were tied to live service games. So all that bubble kind of coming together, it's like these people trying to chase this trend really hard, dumping a lot of money, but because games take so long to make, I think certain developers are starting to finally, or certain publishers are starting to see that money they've pumped in to try and get this piece of the pie, that pie is only so big.
Yeah.
And so the bubble keeps inflating, but there's nowhere for this air to go. And eventually the wall of the bubble gets so thin that it just has to pop. And I feel like that's where we're at. We're somewhere either nearing the popping point is what it feels like, because that even like Sony adjusting, either it's going to pop or it's going to slowly deflate. And I say that to say that Sony have adjusted some of their things to where they're going to slow down how often they put out these live service games. And I'm hoping that what we're getting from here, or what we're getting to, is some of these publishers realizing that there is money to be made in live service, but there's also a way to do a live service game and let it have a natural end of life like multiplayer games of yore. and kind of try and do the best of those and slow down how often you're releasing them. Because even right now, like the Game Awards was a ton of live service games. And you're kind of like, how many more can you have? Because like realistically, Apex, Fortnite, and Call of Duty take up a significant chunk of that market. You may be able to pull someone off for a few months, but if you don't keep them, it's a flash in the pan. You're going to get a little bit of the money you invested back, and then it's going to dry up and fall apart as they return to their home games as they kind of always go to. Destiny 2 is a game like that for people.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You may take a break for a very small bit, play something else for a few months, and then you come back to Destiny 2. A lot of Destiny players do that. So how many games in the market can do that and that branch of the market truly survive? So to that end, and how it deals with deviation, and to a degree how it deals with this Blundell guy, what is his value right now? Is his value as a multiplayer experience creator? Is his value to them just as a shooting game creator? Where are they trying to use him? And how much more is Sony truly giving into this games as a service lean that they went so heavy into and already feel like they're backing out of to some degree?
Yeah.
I mean, do you agree, or do you even see where I'm coming from, or do you think I'm making a mountain out of a molehill?
No, I think that's all objectively true. I think I'm a very specific case because, like, for some games, like I wouldn't go whale, but I'm a dolphin, right? So, but I think what has to happen with those games is they have to capture you, right? When I was an Apex player, we've talked about this on the show. There was a point where I spent $250 for one cosmetic. I didn't do that a lot. I did it once, and it was money that I got by no work of my own. So I didn't feel that bad doing it. But Marvel Snap is the game that has me right now. And if it's under $10 and it helps me move up, I buy it. I've spent a lot of money on Marvel Snap because it's all very like, oh, here's 2,000 credits and 50 gold and a variant, $20. Yeah, that's a great deal. Like, and it doesn't help that Sadie does the same shit. So we're like, did you buy the bundle? And I'm like, not yet. And then she'll be like, these are the variants I got. And I'm like, fuck, I just bought the bundle, you know? Yeah. So I think that's got to be a goal of live service. And that's why Factions was canceled, right? Because if they didn't think they could keep you there long enough to get you invested and make you go, yeah, I could toss them a couple bones, right? Because that's always the way it is for me. With Marvel Snap, it's like, this game is free. And I just like this cosmetic. I like my anime Storm, right? So I bought it.
I think of it in the sense of like, take it from, okay, so we're looking at individual games right now, right? And I guess take it a step back. And I think you can see the market in action and how almost any market works, right? A market has a cap, a certain number of people who are willing to interact with your market. So if we look at gaming, there's PC, there's Sony with PlayStation, Microsoft with Xbox, Nintendo with Xbox, and or whatever, Nintendo, and then Xbox, and then there's arguably Steam. And Steam and Epic are in various ways tied to the PC nature. So you really can't look at them in the exact same way, but Steam's getting more into hardware, so you can talk about them to a degree. But what I'm really getting at here is that there's really 4 players in the gaming space that's normal, and then 5 if you bring in smartphones. And you could subdivide those even further and say, well, Android and Apple, since those really are the 2 that you can do. So suddenly you have 6 markets for gaming. And what I'm really getting at here is that you can see right now with Xbox's numbers, the market in motion. There's only so much market realistically, and there's only so much time, and people only have so much time. So why do normally most consumers don't buy an Xbox, a Switch, a PlayStation 5 and then have a computer or a Steam Deck. Most. There are definitely some who do, but that's not what they bank on, right? They bank on absolutely. The normal person who buys one. And so you fight for that person to try and be the one, if you get really lucky, one of the two things that they buy. And if you don't make that, you are the lowest on the totem pole. And there's a reason that Xbox One sold around 50 million in comparison to PlayStation 4 selling over 100 million, and Switch selling over 100 million, and PCs doing their own thing and selling millions and millions. My point there is that if you're seeing that in a more macro look, then when you zoom back into the micro, we're seeing, if you look right now and you think about the games that are big, there are about 5 or 6 that seem to be evergreen and hold on to an audience and tend to be what the market is established by. I don't know how the publishers are looking at this, and they have people that are much smarter than me. So, but sometimes you can make something simple too complicated and then you fail anyway. That's just the nature of some things, right? Actually, a quote from the Avatar game. It's like, he says, like, the guy gives me a quest to go get some ingredients to make a meal, and it sounds like, well, that's a simple meal. And he goes, well, simple recipes are usually the hardest to master. And that's the reality, is that something as simple as breaking into a seemingly burgeoning market can be made too complicated, and then suddenly you fuck it up. Where I'm getting at with all this, I'm surprised that no one's looking at this and being like, we either have to think our game is good enough to bring new players into a market to make this market bigger, which maybe that is what they're really banking on, or this game is good enough that it's going to steal enough players from the other 5 or 6 big ones that we can become either the 7th, or we can become one of the new 6 while we push one of the original 6 out. And there's value in that. From a consumer standpoint, we should want to see new games come in and push the old ones out to make sure that games keep being more and more progressive, and pushing things forward. Progressive is probably the wrong word. It's too politically tied into things now. But what I mean is, you want to see games push forward and do something new and interesting, and that is typically easier to do when something new comes in and pushes something old out. So yeah, it's weird to look at this and see how many games are coming out, because it feels like there's no possible way that someone can look at this and think that even half of the games that are being announced and released are going to get you any real return on investment.
Maybe I'm being aggressive about this, but I feel like you're looking at it very right. But here's the thing. If Concord, Fair Games, and this game can all equal Warzone, it was worth it.
Or can it? I guess that depends on how it's budgeted, right?
But what I'm not saying one of those games. I'm saying if
all three together.
All three together. So okay, so we're on the same page.
I understand. Yeah,
so
if
all 3 together.
But that depends on how much these games cost to make.
Sure, of course.
What does the return of investment need to be? And a lot of these seem to be quite expensive.
I think the thing that they're banking on, dude, realistically, is these are PlayStation games. Like that's the bank. Like, hey, you can only play this here, or you're a PlayStation guy.
Is that really? Because
of course,
think about all the other games I just listed. They're all non-console exclusive. You can play them anywhere, including phone on a good chunk of them, at least Fortnite.
Yes,
and that means being on more places actually helps your chances. Now, I'm assuming your talk is like, we'll say it's been budgeted accordingly, and we're hoping that we can draw people who don't usually interact with this segment of the market to play these games, because they're like, well, it is a PlayStation game and it pulls enough people to justify that market. Or are you saying that it's going to pull people from everywhere because of the PlayStation quality still?
There's a level of that, but I think that would be overblown. What I'm saying is PlayStation dudes are going to download and play this game because it's a free game on their PlayStation, made by PlayStation first party. Even if it's not
assuming
free.
They're free.
Assuming they're free. Obviously, the calculus changes entirely if it's a $70 box product. But I do think there's that bet on, hey, these guys who are already baked into our system are going to be looking forward to our games, and we're giving them a shooter. or we're giving them a mission-based PvE extraction game, which is what Fair Games seems like to me. So that's really what I think it is a push of, hey, we're PlayStation. Hey, this game is really fun. And, oh, by the way, this is a PlayStation first-party game. You know, the guys who published God of War enjoy Fair Games. You know, that's I think that's the calculus. But I really do think that if all three of these games are medium successes, or one is a pretty big success, one is medium, and one is nothing, they'll be fine.
Okay.
They still have MLB.
Look, we'll see. I just think it's interesting to see this. But let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and kind of pivot into some questions that we have here. We got a couple.
Can I do some housekeeping quick?
Do some housekeeping. Go ahead.
All right. So this is the last week of the trophy competition.
This is the last week of the trophy
competition. For the record, the last month of the trophy competition, the game was Power Wash Simulator. That was bad of me. I didn't do it. I will add those points whenever Brett and I decide to talk about it. And we're going to kind of break it down on the show. But you have until the 1st. And if you platinum it before the 1st, well, then there you go, 1,000 points. So right now...
1,000 extra points, just to be clear.
Correct, 1,000 extra points. So I had our dedicated bookkeeper, One-Armed Wolf. He sent me the standings. So, it is him and Brett, top 2, along with, I believe that's Josh Ayers in 3rd place. And then I am in 4th place with 49,000. So...
How close am I to him right now? Is this all points? I need to know.
He was like, as I messaged him while we were recording when I decided I needed to do some housekeeping. And he was like, you want me to update it? And I was like, no. So this is as of December 1st. You are 5,000 points away from him.
Yeah.
Although, look, I want to say something.
This month.
I want to say one thing.
Sure.
One-Armed Wolf wins a moral victory. Because he destroyed everybody.
Oh, he 100%
but then
destroyed
Kuno guy,
everyone.
I think it was Kuno guy who dropped. I apologize for getting that wrong. Kuno guy dropped, and they were going back and forth with the shitty jumping tacos. And One-Armed Wolf dropped all his tacos when Kuno guy left. So, Brett, this would not even be close. I would be calling game on this episode if he hadn't done that. Yeah. So I'm going to give him his shout out, and if he loses, bad call. But I'm going to figure out something for next year.
He wins anyway. I mean, realistically, that's what we know. But look, separate of all the taco games, as we're going to call them, then if the fact that I can catch up to him at all is pretty good.
Yeah.
Because I have had months of not getting any platinums of really very many trophies at all. And then I'll just hyperfixate and play a bunch of games with and it's funny because I'm just playing games, but they just happen to be going into December. I already knew I don't want to play anything big. And so I started playing a bunch of small stuff. And then as I'm playing, I'm like, this game's pretty good. I can platinum this. And then I look, I'm like, oh, this is a pretty easy platinum. And then I do it. And I just I've been doing that all month, but it's added up because I've gotten 7 or 8 platinums this month.
The moment I saw you playing The Artful Escape, I'm like, this guy's doing it again.
What's funny is that's been downloaded on my system. But yes.
So that's all I have to say. I think the last thing, I want to start it January 1st again. This is all very late. I didn't think too hard about how we'd start the next round. But if you're in the competition and you want to stay in the competition, One-Armed Wolf will send me the scores on January 1st, and that will start next month. We'll do the same thing. If you're listening now and you'd like to sign up, you can hop in our Discord, which is in the description. The sign up banner is still there. I will add you to the leaderboard. You are free to join for the rest of the year, but your score starts the day that you start, right? So if you start in March, we're not backdating all your taxes here. So you start in March, and that's when it goes. So please join us. It was a lot of fun. We had a lot of good discussions about trophies. I realized my L very early and stopped playing, but it was really fun. It was good to interact and kind of have more of a little bit of a trophy community in our Discord. So if that appeals to you, join up.
Speaking on trophies real quick.
Oh, yeah.
It's funny because you were saying like this guy's doing it again, and for anyone that doesn't know, last year, 2022, I won the trophy competition between Chris and I by being a sneaky man and getting about 10 platinums the final month and not ever posting about them once. I put the impetus on Chris to go and check, and he didn't. Nope. And so I came out victorious, and he thought he had a comfortable lead.
He's ignoring that for the entire year, every platinum that we got, we sent back and forth in our almost every platinum.
That was an unspoken agreement. You know,
I'm not saying you violated any rules. I'm saying morally wrong, but as a competitor,
strategically very good.
Hats off. And that's on me. I should have been verifying, but I'm like, this motherfucker, he ain't doing shit. And then he pops out like Grim Fandango, and I'm like, oh God, I lose.
I didn't do Grim Fandango. I should though. I've never played it.
Was the one?
No, the Day of the Tentacle remaster. That game was awesome.
Yeah. Hey, if you need to throw in another quick couple thousand, Buddy Simulator 1984. I have that on my account. There you go.
Okay. Well, who knows? We'll see. But right now, I'm doing. I need to do that as my first game for next year.
I like that. It's said on the show. First game of next year. Wanted Weapons of Fate. It's happening.
Well, just because there's a very high chance I don't finish Avatar this year, there just is. I have very few days left. So
first full platinum in 2024.
Yes.
Wanted Weapons of Fate. And then he'll finish Wolverine X-Men Origins, and then I'll play them. Well, not Wanted. I already have that platinum. So.
All right. So we got a couple questions we'll move through real quick. But yes, join. Oh, I know what I was going to say real quick. No. I didn't even get it. Of all the games that you were talking about me getting and playing easy ones, I got the Superliminal Platinum, and I realized that Platinum is apparently hard to get because it's very rare.
Really?
And it makes sense because it requires speedrunning, which, it requires a very specific type. Like the Stray Platinum got a lot of people because it required speedrunning.
Yeah.
And it's like, why are you making me run through my cat game? Stop.
Meow, 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 meow. You have a lot in that game.
But first question that we have, I think, is a pretty good one. And it comes from Sweet Gran Turismo Jones, longtime friend, listener of the show. He says, what's your most anticipated game of 2024 and why? He says, I was hyped for the new Mud Runner game, but have been crushed to find out it's single player only. SnowRunner has been a game my brother and I play. So now it's Dragon's Dogma 2. Strength in numbers arisen. Yeah, that sucks, dude. I would have thought because of SnowRunner, and I even thought Mud Runner 1 was multiplayer, but yeah, that sucks. I wonder what's going on there. If it's something they may add eventually, probably not. That's unfortunate, though. I've always thought the developer did a good job of putting out games and kind of sticking to what works for them, and it seems like it's been doing well for them, but maybe not. Maybe I'm crazy. So, Chris.
Yes, bro.
What is your most anticipated game of 2024 and why?
Persona 3 Portable.
There you go. Well, Persona 3 remake, I guess, technically.
Isn't it called Persona 3 Portable? Did I make that up?
Is the remake being based off of Persona 3 Portable, which was a remake?
It's called Persona 3 Reload, not Portable.
Reload, yeah.
But I had Portable in my head. Yeah, I know. I got that as a Christmas present, and that'll come in February. So I'm like, well, you got me a Valentine's Day present, Sadie, so go to the store and get me something else.
Non-thankful, Chris. Non-thankful. Yeah. That's okay. Look, my wife got me tickets to see Creed. I got Christmas with arms wide empty, but you know what? My heart was wide open, and my arms will be wide open when we see them in September of next year. But until then,
dude, not gonna lie to you. Very excited for The Last of Us Part 2 remastered, which is weird. Total turnaround.
Because it's an incredibly fun game.
It's fantastic.
Gameplay, if nothing else, yes.
Gameplay wise, fantastic game. Second tutorial, mediocre. The other game I'm looking forward to, though, Prince of Persia, actually comes out in a couple weeks.
It's so close.
I am super ready for that game.
All right. Well, you stole my answer. But why? Here's the harder question. Why?
Why I'm excited for Prince of Persia?
Yeah.
Literally just because it looks fun.
Nice. I'm good with that.
It just looks really fun.
Well, since that was going to be my answer, the why is because I love Prince of Persia, and I feel like it's been so long since that series has been able to do anything. And unlike a lot of people who seem to be disappointed that this game is a side scroller action, platformer, I'm like, let's fucking go. Because that's what the series roots were anyway. Like, yeah, do I love Sands of Time? Is it one of my favorite games from that series? Absolutely. Is 2008 Prince of Persia also fucking killer and one of the best games in the series? Of course it is. This looks awesome too. They can all be good. This looks really fun. And I'm curious to see, maybe they've talked about it, but I'm curious to see how much it's going to cost. If it will be a full-fledged $60, $70 release, that's bold, but I don't believe it will be.
They would get raked over the coals only because it's 2D. It could be 150 hours long, and because it's 2D, they'd
tell the most beautiful
destroyed.
Story in the world. Yeah.
Oh,
exactly.
I will. Can I shout out one more game, even though I've shouted out 3 now? Banishers, The Ghosts of New Eden.
Dude, I hope that's good.
Super looking forward to trying that one.
You're stealing, dude. How does your follow-up steal the game I moved to?
Okay, I'll change.
Hold on, fine, I'll move again. Oh, also, Chris, technically, you played some of Remember Me.
Yes, I did play Remember Me.
Awesome game. While we're talking about Don't Nod. So, okay, Banishers was going to be my game, but now I get to go to my less fun answer because it's a little more safe. My other 2 games, if I was going to do it, are Rebirth. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, primarily because they keep acting like they've added a lot of stuff that a lot of people seemingly wanted from the first one and didn't get. And I'm hoping that they can make the game as compelling and fun as the first one while making it longer and more padded out without ruining somewhere in there. I feel like they're going to have to strike a balance. And I'm really curious to see if they can pull it off. Plus, this is some of the best Final Fantasy VII content of the whole game in this section. And I'm very curious to see where they're going to stop it. I have my thoughts of where they're going to stop it, but also what's going to change. Because one of the things about Final Fantasy VII Remake that some people didn't like, but that I very much enjoyed, is it being different. You don't know exactly what's going to happen because while they called it remake, in all honesty, it's a reimagining. It's almost like a side game. It's almost like a multiverse game, the way that they approach it, which sucks because everything's becoming multiverse, but I really appreciated how they did it. So,
Final Fantasy Intergrade is one pretty looking forward to going back to and actually finishing.
You need to.
I need to gut check you on something, Brett.
Well, my second game, does it have to do with that? Because I've already mentioned it once. It's Senua's Sacrifice.
Oh, sure.
Was my other game. And it's just because I want to see what being bought by Microsoft has done to that series.
I don't think it's coming out next year, but I will drop everything for Avowed.
Of course, that's an if.
Oh, I was totally different game. Avowed, if it comes out next year, I'm in for. Let me gut check you on something for Rebirth. Are they going to do the thing? Because I have a theory that they're going to do the thing, but it's going to be different.
That's everyone's theory, Chris. Join the club.
Well, I'm trying not to spoil anything, all right?
Well, no. What I mean by that is quite literally all of the online discourse around this game has been, A, is that going to be the ending? Or are they going to cliffhanger it to some degree somehow weirdly? Or even if it does happen, is it going to be what you think?
React in the Discord. I sent you my expectation.
Oh, I'm going to throw you one.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But that depends on if the revelation at the end of the first game is in chronological time or if this is in another universe's timeline. We have to figure that out. So I won't say too much more, but man, 7 Remake was so great and it really just surprised me a lot. So we're going to move on to another question. Hopefully you enjoy Dragon's Dogma 2. I need to play Dragon's Dogma 2 and I'm glad that it doesn't seem like you need to play the first one. So Chris, that may be something we can play together whenever you're down here living next door to me, you know?
Exactly.
I like how you just roll with it. It's like, yeah, fuck it. We'll just let it go. Okay, we've got 2 more questions. This one's going to be pretty difficult, I think, mainly because played this year is weird because I played so much old, just like Chris. But B-Raj88, one of our longtime listeners, longtime patrons, he says, what's one game that you played this year that isn't on any game of the year list you consider a must play? So, of course, the thought process there is a game that came out this year that's not being represented on any of the must play lists. So that's difficult because Chris and I played a lot of non-2023 games this year.
Yeah.
I very much adored RoboCop, but I think I would be hard pressed to call. It's so hard to call a game must play, and I think the reason is because games are so dependent on what you enjoy about gaming that it's hard to look at a single game and say, yes, everyone should play this. So to that end,
I got mine.
I don't actually know if this is touched in a Game of the Year list, but I have an answer if it's not the answer. But you go ahead, Chris.
Trepang Squared.
There you go. Trepang. That's an interesting one. How pissed do you think people would be if I said Forspoken? That's not actually my answer.
It's a bad answer. I was
just curious.
I would also throw Viewfinder on there. Viewfinder's great.
I'm very excited to get to Viewfinder now that I'm done with Superliminal. I know they're different games, but I think that they're the same basic idea, right? Playing with perspective and weird things based off what you're doing. So, okay, so for a game that came out this year that I think is a must play, this is going to sound weird, but on the VR front, which means that you have to have VR, but on the VR front, I actually think for all of the complaining strong, but for all the worry we gave around whether or not Horizon might be getting a little too much, I think Call of the Mountain was actually a fucking phenomenal game. And I enjoyed it much more than I ever thought I would have. I was so ready to play it and be like, this is a gimmick and then turn it off, or to play it and be like, oh, it's just more Horizon. And if anything, I want future Horizon games to be more like it, which is probably not in anyone else's. But if I'm going to go for a game that released this year that I don't think, I've heard people talk about it and rave about it, thankfully. I am going to shout out Remnant 2. I need to play more of it and I need to beat it, but I think that game was great. And every time we played it, I was having a blast.
I agree. We had a good time.
So I think that's the first game. Unfortunately, I had a similar trajectory on both of them. I got a good way through both of them, played with different people, and then never beat either of them, which sucks. But I think it was a good game. So yeah, there you have it. Sadly, I don't have as many 2023 games to talk about, but we have one more question before we go into a Velvet's Corner to round the show off. And it comes from Jehudi MD, another long-time listener, long-time patron. He says, with the end of the year and time for reflection, what gaming-related decision do you regret making this year, or one in the past, if nothing else? And then secondarily, what about a gaming decision or a gaming-related decision that you were happy with, or one in the past? So what you got here, Chris?
I'm going to be abundantly real. Probably buying PSVR 2.
No, I think that's fair. And I feel bad because in a sense, I feel like I very much I hyped it up because I still think it's a great product.
It is a great product.
But as I tell anyone who goes to buy these things, like, you have to know how much you're going to use it for it to be valuable to you.
Exactly. I'm not like killing myself over it, but I definitely wouldn't do it again. It's just something where, honestly, like since we played that first time and I just got like debilitatingly sick, that kind of soured it for me. And I've played just Pistol Whip since then. And even like the little bit I played of like Synapse made me feel sick. So I haven't really played much.
Oh man, that sucks. It's almost like though you finally got sick and it just broke something in you.
Yeah, I think so. Dude, that was bad. I almost threw up on mic with you. It was brutal. And it just got to a point where I was like, Brad, I can't play anymore. Like, I have to get off.
Yeah. No, that's unfortunate. All right. Well, then conversely, what's one that you didn't regret? So what's one that you're very happy with?
Going back to The Witcher 3.
Oh, good answer.
My answer.
Good answer. I feel almost like I'm cheating, but because last episode, maybe the one before that, I gave a similar answer. But one that I'm happy with to start there was putting modern gaming down and going back to playing Vita. I played Vita only for like almost 4 months. And not a single time in that 3 to 4 months was I like, oh man, I'm missing out. I was just like, oh, this game's great. This is really fun. Oh, this game's cool. This is really fun. Oh, this game's cool. This is really fun. And it was just nice because, like I said, I think it gave me better perspective for it. So that was one I was very happy to do. And it's a risk, right? To be like, I'm not going to play anything as a host of a podcast. I'm not going to play anything new. And it's not a regret, but my flip side answer to that, it's the closest thing I can give to it is a regret, is that the reason I regret that decision, even though I think it was a good one, is because the impact of that is that it only worsened the fact that I didn't really get to play enough games this year that came out this year in the way that I intended to. And I think if you've been listening, you may have noticed that we've been kind of hesitant to really do what we normally did, which is talk about game awards and give out awards and stuff. And I have a really hard time doing that this year. And I don't know how Chris feels about that, but I didn't play most of, in all honesty, and only till recently did I even finish Hogwarts Legacy. I've not played either at all or completed most of the big 2024 games that came out this year. And so it makes it really complicated to say, well, this is what I want to give Game of the Year, because it feels, no matter what, every year you're being exclusionary and giving awards to something that you played at the risk of a game that you might have enjoyed better that you just didn't play. It's how it works because there's so many games. How could you be expected to play them all? But more so than any year, I feel like I'm so behind the curve that it would almost be a disservice to try and genuinely point to a game that I felt like did something so much better than any other game this year, because I don't have that reference. I haven't played Resident Evil 4. I haven't played Tears of the Kingdom at all. And at least I played Breath of the Wild, so I could talk about Breath of the Wild. I didn't play Starfield. I mean, you know, a lot of the games that were referenced, even in the Game Awards themselves, I didn't touch.
Yeah, I mean, I think that just gives you a unique perspective, because my Game of the Year, I think, is like abundantly obvious to everybody, but I haven't beaten it. Played 178 hours of it, and I haven't finished it. Like, so, I mean, I don't necessarily think you need to beat it. I played enough of the games this year. Resident Evil 4, I beat 3 times. Dead Space, I got halfway through. Hogwarts Legacy, I almost beat. Armored Core, I got a quarter of the way through. High on Life came out this year on PlayStation. Got that, that counts. I guess I'm really stretching at that point, but
yeah.
I have played a lot of the games this year that I wanted to play. There's some stuff I'm missing. I want to play. I can't even think of it off the top of my head. Avatar is one I want to get more time into. I'd really like to get into Dead Island 2 and just see, I gotta open up Kong Rise of Skull fuckery or whatever it's called. So I don't know. I think there's a conversation to be had, but I do think in a lot of ways, like outside of Baldur's Gate, there's a lot of, I liked it up to this point, but then the consensus is, and I don't know how valuable that is from us, but
yeah, I mean, I don't know. A lot of the games, too, were on the systems I just don't tend to play nearly as much. Like, there was a lot of love for Pikmin 4, and that's not a game that I really have interest in playing, which I don't think is a problem. I'm curious of Tears of the Kingdom, but I don't know for sure that I'd ever really get too far into it. So everything is just kind of as is. But I don't think I would have enjoyed many games this year, if at all, had I not taken that break. So it's you take the good, you take the bad, you mix them up together, and it's the facts of life, as they say. So that reaches us to a Velvet's Corner. And I bounced back and forth on which one that I wanted to go between. But real quick, for the final time, at least at the start, I guess I'll give it one final ring at the end. But here we are. We're moving into what is still being dubbed the sexiest part of the show. Chris, ready your ears.
Velvet's Corner.
Ooh. All right. So we have submissions, of course, some that we've still not gotten to. But yeah, I know, Chris. It's okay. It's okay. Tell you what, if you move down here, you can hold a gun to my head while you force me to fix it. Jokes aside, Velvet had come up and had mentioned that after us talking about the segment, he was excited and wanted to offer up another round of the Quotal Recall. So as you may remember, that was where he listened back to old episodes, got quotes of us, and then we had to guess who said it and about what game. So it was fun listening or to talk to him a little bit about him listening to older episodes. So I'm going to go ahead. We're going to end the year with him since he started the segment. And then coming into next year, we got some that we're going to get into from other people. And we're going to ask for more submissions. So if you have ideas, feel free to shoot them over to us at any time. We're creating a little repository. But Velvet came and he said, "Good day, gents. I greatly appreciated the kind words about Velvet's Corner in the podcast, almost as much as I appreciate you giving a platform to my insane ramblings in the first place. I truly hope the segment will continue with input from the community. It's always a lot of fun to listen to. As a thank you, I've put together another game of Quotal Recall. I've collected 10 quotes from previous episodes, and you'll be working as a team to guess who said what. You'll get 1 point for guessing the person who said it and 1 point for guessing the game that they were talking about. You need 15 points to win, and if you lose, you must each dress in a crappy cosplay on the next show," which is actually a pretty good punishment.
I like that.
The characters will be chosen by each other. So, Chris, you will determine my fate if we lose, and I will determine yours. Good luck. So, here we are. We have the first question, or the first quote, rather. "I had a hammer in my hand and just started hitting everyone in the head with a hammer." Okay, what game allows you to have a hammer in hand and swing it? I'm thinking survival?
Yeah.
But I don't know. And who can you hit in a survival game, though? They're normally free of NPCs. So who are you hitting in the head with said hammer?
So are we saying this is me? Is the thought that it was I?
I don't know. Here's the interesting thing, though, right? In my head, I'm immediately going to like a normal hammer that you use. But can you imagine if this is about like a big hammer weapon, like in a lot of games?
Uh-huh.
So that's what we got to figure out right now, Chris. Okay, first thing we got to try and tie down. Who do you think said this? "I had a hammer in my hand and just started hitting everyone in the head with a hammer." This feels like something I would do. Yeah. And therefore something I would say.
But it also sounds like something I would say.
Yeah, it does. So here's the problem, Chris. We are in a situation where not only do we not know who said it, but we have to go around who actually did it. So I beseech you, Chris, can we take a few seconds to think about games with hammers and that give you a fair amount of freedom with them? My first thought process was something like a survival game, but I think the fact that there's nobody around to kill is unlikely.
Hold on. I think I know.
Okay, what you thinking here?
Was this you when you tried Hitman 3?
I think so.
Okay.
And I'm trying to round back around in my mind to think. Yes, it was.
Yeah, it was you trying Hitman 3.
It was. Yes, it was. Because I'm trying to remember what level it was in. Because there's the opening level where you're on like a boat or whatever, and you're kind of going through.
I think you only did the high rise.
Well, there was that one, and then there was the second one, which I think was a tutorial level, and then I did the high rise.
Yeah. You didn't get to Dartmoor. You got to the high rise.
I started it, and I never finished it because it was one where I'd like sneak in through the window.
That's the best one.
It was the it was the what's it called, the Knives Out house style situation.
Exactly.
Yeah, I did start it, and I got through some of it, and I just never put the game back up. Okay, I feel confident with that answer. You ready to reveal?
Yeah, do it.
Boom. It was me, Hitman 3, episode 246.
Yes!
Bang, bang. 2 points, bro. We got it. Good job. Okay, quote number 2. "Listen, I've got faith in you until you fuck up." This sounds like something I would say.
Yeah.
But here's the problem. As we're learning, Chris.
It sounds like something I would say too.
This is absolutely something you would say too.
Yeah.
Well, if we can at least get 1 point out of this, we're going to be doing all right.
The way it sounds is that this was done during a co-op game, and we have not played a lot of co-op together.
Oh, yeah.
Could it have been
also, I don't know how old these...
times?
So I just want to reference, this is episode 246 Was
what
the
episode
Hitman
are we on now?
334.
That was a long time ago.
So this can be quite a while back.
Could this be Destiny?
That feels wrong.
Yeah. But I don't know what else we've really played. Conan.
I'm almost wondering if this is about you coming back around to a game that you've always hated on. And it being something where it's like, I've got faith in it until you fuck it all up or something. But I don't know.
No,
or like a platinum that you've been working toward and you just,
Yeah.
I genuinely cannot think of a game. Conan feels maybe too, depending on where it lands, maybe too new for this.
Can we just bet on you and Destiny?
Fine.
Because we'll get at least one.
Are you? Oh, wait. Okay, I'm fine with Destiny. I was thinking that maybe I had a game in mind, but I don't think I do. All right. Brett, Cult of the Lamb.
Oh, so close.
Episode 273.
I remember that too, because I was talking about how my whole cult died. And you died because I named it after you.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. So I had faith quite literally in your cult until you fucked up.
Yep.
All right. Quote number 3, Chris. So we're at 3 points. We're not doing bad.
That's not
bad. All this heroin's here. Might as well bump this heroin.
Oh my. That's definitely you.
And what game has heroin in it? Watch it. Well, I mean, he did say what game it's about, so it can't be one of our random tangents that are not even gaming related. What game have I played where heroin was just actively available?
Dude, I don't know.
All this heroin's here. Might as well take a bump. Here's the thing. I would think the heroin would be showed in a game like Grand Theft Auto, but I don't play Grand Theft Auto. And Grand Theft Auto 4 is like the first time I've played a Grand Theft Auto game since 2013. So with that in mind, seems unlikely. What game would have heroin? Some kind of military? Some kind of military shooter?
The next episode of Quotal Recall. What game has heroin?
It's actually a great quote.
Dude, I honestly am drawing a complete blank. It sounds like you, but again,
I definitely.
If you said it was me, it wouldn't surprise me.
Honestly, same as well. But also, if we're going to play the game, right? I've been the last two. What are the chances that the third quote is also from me?
Yeah. But then we can continue playing the game and go, but the last two are from you, so he thinks we're going to guess me, which means it's you because he's trying to trick us. That's just like the whole thing of you can't get off Call of Duty on a loss, but you can't stop a win streak.
I mean, yeah, I suppose. Grand Theft Auto is like one of the only games that comes to mind that really shows hardcore drug use. I don't know. I'm trying to think like
Sleeping Dogs?
I didn't play Sleeping Dogs though. You know what I mean?
That's first of all, fix that. Second of all, okay. Again, I would just bet you, and I don't have a guess.
I'm going to say me, and man, I really wish I could think of a game. The problem with my brain is I've seen Tropic Thunder so many times. I think of the scene where Jack Black busts in and he lands in the pile of heroin and he's like, yeah, because he's an addict. All right. I feel very unfortunate I can't think because
Let's go with Brett and Tropic Thunder.
The Tropic Thunder, the game. I'd play that game.
I would too.
All right. We're Brett RuneScape, episode 260. What in the hell was I doing in RuneScape where there was heroin? But
I don't know. But speaking of a tangent, did you see that Jonathan Majors got fired, and then there was that meme going around that it was Kirk Lazarus was going to replace him.
I did.
Pretty good.
I did. All right, Chris. Quote number 4. We got 4 points at least. I had to adjust my body so I could throw a bowling ball while dropping a deuce.
This is me,
Chris
Switch Sports.
Talking about Wii Sports. Yeah, Switch Sports. Chris, Nintendo Switch Sports, episode 267.
Nailed it.
All right, we got 6 points. We're doing good. Quote 5. Objectively, it's funnier to be fat. This is Chris. This has got to be you.
It's definitely me.
I feel that in my bones, my big bones.
I can feel myself saying it.
Objectively, it's funnier to be fat. All right, fat characters in games.
Uncharted 2. Chris talking about Uncharted 2 because we were talking about Donut Drake.
Oh, what about Donut Drake? Okay, let's find out. Chris, Conan Exiles. Because it was when we were talking about how you had your big yitties.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah. And when we were talking about how you can make your character either super muscular or super fat, because that's how the game works. It allows you to create the spectrum. I wonder exactly what you mentioned it about, though, because that's pretty funny.
Listen, logic tracks, all I'm saying. Donut Drake is objectively
I wonder if it was
than
about the
Drake.
thing where you could jump on the head of someone to kill them.
Oh, yeah.
I wonder if it was in relation to that. So
maybe.
We'll find out. So we got 1 point out of that.
Yeah.
So we're at 7. Quote number 6. It's just that scene from American Pie, and the game is what happens inside the pie. What the hell?
This was you, but I don't think we were talking about a specific game because it reminds me of us pitching stuff.
There's no way.
This is definitely you.
No, I promise you, if these words left my lips, I would remember. Chris, you don't know. I say a lot of unhinged shit. I do. You can ask my wife.
I believe it.
This isn't one of them, buddy.
Okay, I'll take it.
I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
It's a good line. I'll take it, but
it's just that scene from American Pie, and the game is what happens inside the pie. This makes me think that you're being derogatory, and you're doing it toward a game that's meant to have some kind of like people talk about it as though it's deeper meaning, which makes me think that it would be Nier Automata.
I can see Nier The Last of Us, but
you didn't play Replicant, did you?
Not enough. I don't think I said that about Nier because here's the thing. When we did the Nier spoiler cast, I was trying super hard not to make you mad.
Oh, this was after this. I don't know. This was after, I'm pretty sure, but hard to say because Replicant came out after the spoiler cast for Nier. I think we would have had a reason to be talking about Nier again, but also Nier has become a joke on the show to some degree when we talk about your disdain for Nier. But I can't think of, can you think of another game that's kind of got people that talk about like, what's just so deep? I mean, all of them are Yoko Taro games, and the only one I know that you've played was Automata, unless you played some of Replicant, which I don't think you did. I know you didn't play Dragon Card 3.
No, I own it though.
Oh yeah, sick game. Mm-hmm. Good pool. Good thing to have on your shelf, just sitting there.
Pretty dope.
Yeah. I'm saying it's you. I'm gonna guess Nier Automata.
I don't have a guess for this, so.
But I don't know.
I think it's
you. Okay. Okay. Good news, Chris. It's you.
Oh, okay. What was I talking about?
Bad news. It's Nier Replicant.
No shit.
Did you so you did play a very small amount of it?
Yeah, I played the opening.
Oh, wait. I wonder, because you remember I was talking about how I was doing a trophy and I was having, the only trophy I'm missing for the game is a grind for that one fucking thing where you got to keep doing it.
Yeah.
I almost wonder if you said it in reference to me talking about grinding the trophy.
Maybe. I don't remember.
It's episode 276. I'm going to have to do a little bit of research myself.
Go back and hear it.
Yeah. All right. So we got 8 points total right now. All right, quote 7. Sometimes you'd squeeze it and once. Hold on. Sometimes you'd squeeze it once and it would break.
What?
Sometimes you'd squeeze it once and it would break.
Okay.
Squeeze. The problem here is I don't have enough context for what break means in this situation. So, Chris, what are games that you bitched about? Because this is how I'm thinking this might have to do with the DualSense and how certain games end up using the triggers to resist you in certain ways. So what are games that you've had problems with the triggers? I had problems with Forspoken, so I'm going to look at myself too. Forspoken, but nothing's going to break there. That's just, you get tired of smacking them down.
Yeah, I genuinely don't know what this is referring to or who said it. I have no sense. I would almost say you said it because I have so little recollection of the words.
I mean, same, but we can guess on me. I don't have a game. Unfortunately, Velvet, I think we're going to have to scoop this one and hope we get lucky. This was Chris about The Medium, episode 283. What could you break in The Medium?
Oh, we were talking about how those puzzles or the doors were supposed to be like this hard thing, and then all of a sudden you could just maybe it's that.
Oh, you're talking about the flesh doors that you had to like cut?
Yeah.
Oh God. Okay, fair enough. Quote number 8. It really got me bangers and mash going.
That's
this sucks because it's probably me, but this was me referencing the fact that Joe. Hey, it might have been me. Hold on. I think it's me referencing the fact that when Joe was a guest on the show, and that would actually be interesting if it wasn't either of us, it was a guest.
It's Joe.
But he doesn't like the word banger. But this is also clearly just a British game. So if this is British referencing. So it could have just been a game where you play as a British person. Yeah. Which could be either of us at that point, and I don't know enough.
I definitely didn't say these words. How many points do we need?
15.
Okay, golly.
He went hard.
Man, yeah, I got nothing. Man.
Wait, Chris, no. We're stupid. Listen, since the last Quotal recall, you understand that we did a whole fucking episode where we did the what we're playing in British accents and also terrible Australian accents.
Okay.
What were we playing? Was that Spider-Man 2 week or was that Alan Wake or both?
Might have been Alan Wake.
I feel like I don't remember doing it to Alan Wake. And I played Spider-Man 2 before Alan Wake. I'm gonna say this is me talking about Spider-Man 2.
Okay.
If you have objections, I'm willing to hear them.
Nope, I do not.
Okay, it's me talking about Spider-Man 2, episode 328. So like a few weeks back. Oh, okay. That was a good one though, because the thing is with Joe being there, I started doing the bangers and mash occasionally for people who just listen to both shows, just to throw my ring in the hat there. Even though I think it's actually bangers and slangers is their thing that they go between.
Oh, okay.
You know, so it's like team banger, team slanger. So. Quote number 9. I will start a new campaign specifically to go smack her ass.
Me talking Baldur's Gate 3.
Let's go. Also, I got to figure out how many, before I reveal the answer, how many points are we at? We had 10, 8, right? That was 9, 10. So let's see what we got here.
12.
Nope. This was me talking about Swordbreaker, and I remember that.
Oh, yeah, okay.
That game is the one where every single decision has like a tree that you can go down. Oh, man. Because I fucked that up.
I remember in my current playthrough, I killed a certain character in Baldur's Gate 3, but I want a romancer in my next one. So,
well, what's funny is that in the game, it's literally to go smack her ass, like in Swordbreaker, whereas Baldur's Gate will not let you slap ass, unfortunately, even though this clearly reads as like more like, yeah, I'm a... yeah, somebody's already done it. Well, Chris, I think we've officially lost, but for the fun of the game, quote number 10.
Okay.
My dummy thick butt keeps clapping and I can't hear the dialogue.
I'm going with me, but I don't remember the game because it's not about Red Dead.
I think it is because we kept making the. We kept doing the. I'm trying, Arthur, but the sound of my
dummy thick cheeks is waking up the O'Driscolls. Edit that into the show.
The clapping of my ass is alerting
the O'Driscolls.
I'm pretty sure that's what it is because that was a random YouTube video I saw.
Yeah,
that was the. But Arthur,
go for it. If you think it's that one, we lost already. So
we've lost already. Chris, Red Dead 2, episode 300.
There you go.
Not even that long ago. All right. Well, Velvet, thank you for one final Velvet's Corner. We have lost. So I guess the first episode of the year will have some kind of crappy cosplay as long as I can get something here from Amazon, because, it's that time of the year. If I can get something here in time, because we don't have a store in town for me to cosplay, I'm going to look and see what I already have. But I'll figure it out. I may be the worst Sam Porter Bridges you've ever seen. I would actually just throw on the Dead Space helmet and wear it the whole episode if you could hear me talk, but you wouldn't be able to. So, unfortunately, that's where we are. Chris.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining me, sir. This has been the end of the episode. So, I'll give everybody kind of a little shout out real quick. We were kind of talking about what we wanted to do this week because we wanted to be a shorter episode and not worry since we were busy at work. And Chris and I were talking about wanting to talk about games we're excited for next year. And we decided not to do that today because we wanted a little more time to prepare. Of course, we hinted at some of it today, but I think we're going to really get into next episode. I assume is going to be us kind of talking about games from 2023 that we really enjoyed. And then also talking about the 2024 games that we really enjoyed so that we can kind of lead, or that we think we'll enjoy it, so that we can kind of lead into choosing our Metacritic draft for next year so that maybe this year I can beat Chris.
Spoiler alert, I won.
Yeah, pretty sure. I don't think any scores have changed enough for that to matter. So.
It's been over for, 2 months?
You just wait. If Sons of the Forest Shadow drops on the 29th.
Could you imagine? Or Stellar Blade?
Wouldn't that be insane, though? If,
both
suddenly someone gets
drop.
Crazy and we're just the same spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not expecting that. But Chris, thanks for joining me as always, man. We will see you all next year with the first official episode. And I guess with that in mind, we're going to propose a question for the community's take, which we've kind of been being lax on just due to the way everything's going. But I like the question that we got from Jehudi here, and I want to use it. So as Jehudi said, what was a gaming decision that you made this year that you regretted? We'll go off of that and then maybe we'll even include the what's one that counterbalanced it as something you enjoyed. But until next week, this has been Triangle Squared, a PlayStation podcast. I've joined by Chris as always. I'm Brett, your host. If this was your first time with the show, we hope you enjoyed it and you stick around. We'll see you next year, just like everyone else, very hopefully. If you want to go and spend more than just your time listening to the show every week to support us, which we are always thankful for, you can head over to patreon.com/Nartech and give as little as $1 per month to support the show. We are always appreciative of those who do so because it helps us keep the show running without digging into our own pockets. And we always shout them out at the end of every episode as they help make this possible. But before I do that, if you want to be part of the community's take or just talk to us about what we talk about on the show and chime in with your own opinions, join us anywhere. Feel free to tweet to us or post to us on X over at Triangle SQRD on that site. You can find us in Facebook on Triangle Squared, a PlayStation podcast. It's a group you can ask to be entered into. And of course, our favorite that we always like to plug is Discord, where we have a lot of our listeners and a lot of our patrons specifically. Go in there and chat up with us. It is completely free to join. You don't have to be a patron. So just come in, talk to us about what you've been playing, talk to us about what trophies you're getting, join the trophy competition for next year so that you can get a stupid shirt as a prize and maybe something more. But with that said, we will hopefully hear from more of you in the Discord down in the description below, whether you're watching on YouTube in video format or listening on your favorite podcast service. If you are listening on your favorite podcast service and it allows you to rate the show, consider taking a moment out of your time, out of your day to rate the show. Let us know what you do and don't like about it if it lets you review it. And if nothing else, let people know if you think the show is worth their time. Chris, we have come to an end here, so I think it's time to shout out our lovely patrons. So, without further ado, we'd like to thank Spencer, Brandon Edwards, Alex, Barry Rogers, Stingray X, Easton328, Aztec King, Lecheon69, The Lord Corgi, Bailey Robertson, Mark Schutz, Cypher Primus, Kyle Grimm, Rude Days 93, Kevin Bacon Bits, Danny Villalobos, Jehudi MD, No Fate, Josh Ayers, Derek Porter, Donovan Williams, Matthew Green, and Sean Santarud. Thanks to each and every one of you. We'll see you next week.